everyone, welcome back. This video is going to be a book review wrap up of all the books that I read in January. So I'm so excited because it was a perfect time for me to start my YouTube channel because a new year and I get to start from January with all my book reviews. So I'm super excited. So if you watched my last video about my 2024 book reviews, then you know at the end of December I stopped in the middle of a series. The last book was the second book in the series, I believe. So the first book that I finished in January was the third book of the Windy City series by Liz Tomford, and this book was Caught Up, and I rated this book a 4 to 5. This book was about a single dad who plays baseball for the professional Chicago team in the series, and he is looking for a nanny that will help take care of his kid while he's on the road, travel with them so his kid's always nearby, and he's not had any luck at all with any of his nannies before and always like immediately fired them. And he has like this trauma with getting attached to people because the mom of his kid like left the kid on his doorstep and didn't even tell him that he had a kid until she dropped him off. So that's cool. And eventually, obviously, like he's forced to find someone to take care of his kid because he travels all the time and plays baseball and doesn't have time to watch him while he's playing baseball. So he almost gives up, but he runs into the owner of the baseball team's daughter, where she is tagging along with the team and her dad for the season while she is taking a break from her professional culinary experience, and she volunteers to nanny for him. And she knows not to get attached to people because she's trying to live up to her dad's expectations as well as, you know, make him proud of her. And so she isn't expecting to get attached to the main male character or his kid, and in the end she does, and there's tension and chemistry between the two, and they end up falling in love like any good romance book. So it's a kind of single dad nanny romance, and she also kind of shows him that it's okay to trust people and that some people, well, most people aren't like his traumatic ex who had his kid, but that if you open up, you can learn to trust people. And she also learned that it's okay to set down roots somewhere and change her lifestyle to, you know, something different that she wants to do because a different thing came up in her life and she wanted to change that. I am so sorry. The next book is the last book of the series, and it is Play Along. And this one I also rated a 4 out of 5. It was really good. And this one follows along another baseball player from the same team, professional team in Chicago. And he is known for being life of the party, super happy, and always making jokes. But like deep down, he always kind of feels lonely and missing out on things and just wants more from life, even though he puts up a happy facade. And he runs into one of the new athletic trainers who he overheard having an argument with someone else from the medical team over her qualifications, and he jokes with her, but he also realizes how qualified she is and tries to push her to fight for her job that she's actually qualified to do. And obviously he flirts with her, but he actually like realizes that she's the one that he wants to actually try to have a committed relationship with instead of just a fling. And she, despite his persistence and jokes, she keeps pushing away, like, I need to focus on my career. Me being a woman in this field, in a male-dominated sport, I need to prove that I am not like sleeping my way to this position or this spot on the medical team. So she keeps pushing off his advances until a fun night in Vegas where they get married. And then they kind of run with it. They fake date for like the press and the media, and they end up falling in love. They realize that their fake dating and fake marriage gets to a point where it's not fake anymore. So kind of like your classic fake marriage trope. And it was super cute because they both realize that they can't put up this facade, and she learns things about him that he doesn't share with everyone, and he learns things about her that she doesn't share with a lot of people either. The next book that I read was The Striker by Anna Huang, and this book I have been wanting to read for the longest time. This is the first book of one of her new series. The new series is called Gods of the Game, and it follows American soccer and like European football. In this book, the main male character is a famous soccer player, and I am gonna call it soccer because it's just so much easier, but he is famous over there in the European world, and he ends up being traded and takes the trade to his rival team, where he is forced to play with also his rival who cost him the championship in the previous season. And their tension and rivalry gets in the way of their game and their team spirit and everything. So the coach makes them train together, do cross training together, which happens to be ballet. And the main character's rival sister is the ballet instructor that is forced to unfortunately coach them and deal with their competitiveness. But when the rival has to leave, and for like side story issue, the main male character and the female main character are forced to just continue cross training on their own. And when they first met, there was immediate chemistry and tension, even when they didn't know each other. But now that they know that they can't like hang out or befriend each other or mingle, or so it's kind of like a forbidden romance trope type thing. But he learns that she went through a traumatic experience with ballet that kind of caused her to have fear about going back into ballet. Even though she's a teacher, she has a fear about performing because of stuff that happened in her past. But he kind of pushes her and helps her get out of her comfort zone, and she learns that he isn't as arrogant and selfish and uptight as the media portrays him to be, and that he has a bunch of underlying trauma and issues with his father, who was super mad at him when he traded. And she realizes kind of where his frustration with the game is coming from, and in the end they have to kind of keep their relationship a secret for a little bit when the female main character's brother, who's the male character's rival, comes home and the season starts. And they try to keep it a secret, but they end up having to break it off, and someone breaks someone else's heart because of secret keeping and her brother finding out. But in the end, the male lead wins her back with a grand gesture, and everyone is happy. Everyone was friends, and romance lives on, and the team does well after the rivalry gets put aside, and teamwork makes the dream work. The next book that I read in January was How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn, and this one I rated a 3 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite. It kind of lost me at points, and I don't think it helped that I read it after the holidays, and I wanted to read it during the Christmas time, but it wasn't on the Libby app, so I had to wait till it got Kindle Unlimited. But it was still a cute book. I just feel like it kind of lost me at some points, like I said before, and I don't know, the plot just wasn't as good. I don't know. Moving on, the next book that I read is The Night Shift by Annie Crown, and this one I also rated a 3 out of 5. it just seemed really quick and short. There wasn't like, the plot was very straightforward, and there wasn't much of a like turning point in the book or something drastic that happened. Like literally in the first 5 pages, the characters meet and make out and whatever. So I was like, oh, like what's gonna happen to the rest of the book if they just hit it off right away? Okay. This next book is the first book of a series. It's a hockey romance series. It's the Jacksonville Ray series. So this first book is Pucking Around by Emily Rath, and I was not expecting this book to be what this book was about. If you've read the book, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you didn't read the book and you read the summary of the book, you still won't understand what I'm talking about until you read the full book. Because I read the summary of the book and I was like, oh, this is cute. Like, multiple love interests, whatever. Needless to say, I was shocked. But I loved it. It was a good book. It was good, and it had a lot of good lessons to be learned, things about, you know, just being yourself, not caring what society says, kind of going against the grain, dealing with outside noise and pressure, following your heart. Yeah. So to not like spoil it too much, it's about this girl who comes from a famous family. Her dad was a famous musician, and she's trying to pave her way on her own, and she is a sports medicine physical therapist, and she gets an offer to work with a new NHL hockey team in Jacksonville, Florida. So she gets that, and she had this previous experience years ago with, it was a hookup with this guy, and she's never forgotten about him, but she happens to run into him in Jacksonville, and he happens to play for the team. But she also notices his friend, who she didn't know was his friend until later, and so she kind of has feelings for both. And then she also develops feelings in a relationship with someone else on the hockey team, and it ends up being like a foursome, 4-way relationship. They have like a little family kind of group love for each other type thing, if that makes sense. So that definitely kind of now that I realize that I said that, that definitely kind of spoils the book. So that book, I don't know if I said, but I rated that one a 4 out of 5. The next book that I read was the second book of that series, and that one is called Pucking Wild. This one I rated a 4 out of 5 as well, and this one is about the friend of the main character, female main character of the first book, and she is coming out of trying to come out of a toxic relationship with her soon-to-be ex-husband, and he constantly is trying to like blackmail her and gaslight her into thinking that they can work out the relationship and that she's the problem. And there is like, I think there's trigger warnings in that one about like abuse and stuff, but she ends up meeting and kind of falling for the golden retriever boy of the hockey team, and it's a reverse age gap, so she's, I don't know how much older she is than him, but she's older than the guy, and they end up finding themselves living together when they both need like some place to stay, and she has to take care of him when he has a broken leg, and you know, has to rehab. And the more time they spend together, the more they realize that they can't fight their chemistry or, you know, the friendship and tension that they have, and they fall in love. Pucking Sweet by Emily Rath is the last book of the series and the next book that I read in January, and this one I rated also a 4 out of 5. It's with 3 people, and it's about the PR rep for that professional hockey team in Jacksonville, and she finds herself being pulled to two of the players. And these two players have known each other for a while. She had previously worked with one of the players on a previous team that they both worked and played at. So they already kind of had a relationship of just being work colleagues and whatever. But then she meets this new guy and they have like this banter and this, I wouldn't say frustration and anger at each other, but like quality banter. And he annoys her on purpose because she gets all flustered and he loves that. But then she finds comfort in the other guy who treats her nice and is really like more golden retriever vibes. And she ends up kind of hooking up with both of them at different times and not really sure what she should do because she's kind of getting feelings for both. She ends up kind of letting down her hair, literally and figuratively, because she's very prim and proper, and she ends up just like letting loose and just following her heart and stepping out of her shell and deciding to be with both guys. And they both are willing and wanting to share her. The two guys end up falling in love and loving her as much as they love each other, and she loves both of them equally. So yeah. Okay, we're halfway through the month of January. We're almost there. The next book that I read was The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy, and this is the Campus Diaries. And if you don't know, this is like the spin-off of the Off-Campus series that she has, and this is about kind of the next generation. This first book was about the first book of the last series, main character's daughter. She comes from a legendary hockey player and her mom, who ended up being a successful musician. And so she's following this in the footsteps of her dad being a hockey player, and she has aspirations of being on the USA Olympic team. So she really needs to perfect every aspect of her game. And unfortunately, she has to turn to kind of like an arrogant kind of guy who ends up having to play for her university's hockey team. And he offers to help in trade for her good word, her putting in a good word for him to her dad for this hockey camp thing that he can be recruited for, to help coach kids. So as they spend more time together, obviously trying to help each other, they fall in love, and that's about it. The next book that I read is called The Dixon Rule, also by Elle Kennedy. It's the second book in the series. This one is about this cheerleader who is very independent and type A. She sticks to her rules, she sticks to her schedules. She's juggling 2 jobs, trying to support herself, and she tries to stay out of trouble because she doesn't need that in her life. Unfortunately, trouble finds her, and that is when the main male character comes into play. He doesn't really have to worry about working at all. He just wants to get better at hockey. And so he has plans to spend the summer just training, working out, hanging out, whatever. And she doesn't like him because he has hooked up and played with the feelings of her cheer teammates. He has messed with their feelings, and she doesn't like him for that because it has cost them cheer championships and it caused broken limbs and whatnot. So she already has like a predisposition about him, and it's negative. Unfortunately for both of them, both of their exes come back into their lives in 2 different ways, but they end up working out an agreement of fake dating each other to just show their exes that they've moved on. Fake dating trope that turns into love. The next few books that I read in January are also from a series. It's the Vancouver Storm series by Stephanie Archer. So the first book is Behind the Net, and this one I rated a 4 out of 5. And the second book is The Fake Out. I also rated a 4 out of 5. And the third one is The Wingman, which I also rated a 4 out of 5. The first book is about the hockey goalie needing some help from an assistant, and his assistant happens to be someone from high school who he had a crush on, and he doesn't realize that she also had a crush on him in high school. And so when she needs a place to stay, and since she's already his assistant, he offers for her to live with him. So it kind of goes like that. From a work relationship to something a little bit more, and they end up falling in love. So yeah. Second book is another fake dating trope. It's when one of the physiotherapy, I think that's her job. She's a physiotherapist for the team, I think is the job title. She ends up needing to fake date one of the players because her ex has been traded to the team. And he also tries to beg for her back. I feel like there's a reoccurring theme in these books. Another fake dating trope that ends up into love. So, and despite how much that she doesn't want to fake date this guy or date this guy for real, she realizes her feelings. And yeah, the last book of the series is about this guy and girl who used to be friends. Well, I guess they are still friends, but they met in college and they were best friends. She ended up falling in love and dating one of his friends because he didn't make a move on her, and she actually was waiting for him to make a move. He just didn't know it. So they have been friends for like since college, but when she ends up breaking off her relationship with the guy that she was dating, she just needs support from her friend, and so she goes to her first friend, like this guy on the hockey team, and he wants to be a supportive friend. She wants to bounce back and learn how to be more outgoing and more of a playboy, but like a girl version. She wants to be a player. She wants to learn how to be a player, and she recruits her friend to teach her because she thinks that he is a player. But little does she know that he actually has just been trying to find a woman that makes him feel the same way she makes him feel, if that makes sense. And he has been unsuccessful, so all of his hookups and relationships that he's had didn't last that long because he realized that no one is like her. And she doesn't know that, obviously. So even though he accepts her offer and requests for him to help her be a player and meet someone and gain all of these new experiences, he ends up getting jealous, kind of keeping her to himself, and ends up offering his services and his help to experience some of these things in a completely platonic way, which obviously ends up not being completely platonic, and she learns and realizes that he does actually like her more than just friends, even though he tried to stay away, and he admits that, and he learns that she has feelings for him too, and they end up happily ever after. Yay! The next book that I read in January is If We Ever Meet Again by Anna Huang, and this one I rated a 4 out of 5. It is about these two college students who are studying abroad, and they find their way to each other, becoming friends, realizing the tension and chemistry they have, but the male character's past comes back to kind of haunt him a little bit, and the book ends up leaving kind of on a cliffhanger-ish. And so that rolls over into the second book, If the Sun Never Sets. The beginning of this book picks up a few years later, and where they both have graduated college, established their careers, both are kind of successful, and when their paths cross again, they realize that their hearts have been broken for a long time, and that the other person is what they need to help heal their heart completely, but they are both totally not ready to trust each other. Well, that's a lie. She's not totally ready to trust him because he broke her heart a couple times back in the first book. She's hesitant about giving him another try, but he convinces her just to see where it goes as friends, because she is working on a project for him as an interior designer, and so they automatically are spending time together, and eventually they hang out more, friends again, rebuild that trust a little bit, and as things are going well and about to be official and more of that romantic full relationship, he kind of betrays her trust again, and that really is like the final straw for her, and she pushes him away and says like, I can't do this, but he's adamant about winning her back again. So he waits her out, he does everything he can to prove that he loves her and that he has learned that his secrets and keeping secrets aren't good, and that he needs to be totally and completely honest with her, and that despite his fears that she may not take his secrets with a grain of salt or like well at all, that he just needs to trust that she will still love him and that she will understand and hear him out. So eventually she does hear him out and they work out in the end. Yay! So the first book was kind of, I didn't even know what the first book trope was, but the second book is definitely a second chance romance, which was really cute because you kind of got to see how they were feeling during their time apart, and then their thought process when they run into each other again, and how they're feeling and kind of their mindset meeting each other and getting back into it. The third book is If Love Had a Price by Anna Huang, and this one I also rated a 4 out of 5. This book is about a girl from that same friend group from the first book who studied abroad, and she is an only child, but her dad is marrying or supposed to marry a very young woman who is cheating on him and spending all his money, but he doesn't realize it. So she tries to hire a not well-known actor, almost like a kid who's trying to be an actor. And so she hires him to kind of set up a scenario where her dad's fiance gets caught cheating. In order to do that, she is fake dating this guy to make her soon-to-be mother, stepmom, get jealous in order to cheat. And the main male character only agrees to this agreement because his dad is an alcoholic and his sister is going to be attending college soon, and he needs to support them financially. And since he's not booking big major jobs, acting, and this female lead is offering thousands of dollars for something he thinks is going to be easy, he takes the offer. So they end up fake dating, but things go awry when her dad comes back before they can stage the fake cheating scandal, and they have to continue their fake relationship. He learns that she isn't as pretentious and stuck up and like rich girl vibes as much as she puts up that front. They end up falling actually in love, and even though things got crazy and their fake dating kind of got out, and yeah. The last book of the series is If We Were Perfect, and this one I also rated a 4 out of 5. This book is another second chance romance, and it again is like she broke his heart, he broke her heart, they find themselves back in the same city, she needs help, he's the only one that she knows in the city that can help her. They end up living together because her apartment flooded, and even though they're opposites in some ways, him being a little bit more carefree and not so much as a rule follower and a planner, and she is, they end up working it out and giving their relationship another try and falling in love again. So I promise if you read them, the plots and the like character development is actually really good. Okay, the last book that that I started and finished in January is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. And this book is the first book of the Lakefront Billionaire series, and this book I rated a 4 to 5. This book is about two frenemies who find themselves being reunited. They both, after they graduated high school and after their first semester of college together, they kind of went different ways, and they both became very successful in home renovation. She as an interior designer and him as like construction and architecture-ish, more just construction. So they both have successful businesses that they run and own, but she finds herself coming back to her hometown where he still lives because she broke up with her ex-fiance, who happened to be the roommate of her frenemy from back home. So that's cool. And yeah, so they find themselves back in this same hometown. Their families are really good friends. They're practically one big family, and they are kind of find themselves in a position to work on a project together. And during this time that they work together, he realizes what she's gone through. During their time working together, they go back to their childhood antics of pulling pranks and bantering with each other, which kind of leads them to having more tension and more chemistry between them, and yeah, which ends up in romance. So this last book I technically finished at the beginning of February, but I started at the end of January, so I'm gonna say I read it in January. So this book is the second book to the Lakefront Billionaires series, and this one is called Love Unwritten. So this book is a single dad trope and nanny, and he is a grump. It's also a grumpy sunshine, for sure. They both have had traumatic experiences, different reasons. He had traumatic experience with his ex, who they didn't really have a good relationship, and it especially went downhill after they had the kid. And the nanny, she has had traumatic past with like self-harm and depression, when her own family kind of had, her own parents kind of have issues, and her dad never treated her right either, but she found her way through it through music, and she is trying to find her way through life still through music. And they kind of have like a rocky relationship because he just is a grump, and he's also jealous that she has a better relationship with his son than he does, but he tries to make more of an effort to rekindle that relationship with his son because she may not be around forever, and he just needs to have a better relationship with him in general. And while they're working together to do that, they end up falling in love. So that's it. Okay, so if I counted right, I read 19 books, including that last one that kind of bordered January and February. So I read 19 books total in the month of January. And so far in the month of February, I have read 2 books, and I am almost done with the third. And so we'll see how many I read in February. It's obviously not a race or a competition. I just love reading in my free time. And so whenever I'm not working or when I'm commuting to and from work, I'm reading. And because I have the time and it relaxes me, and I'm not just sitting there on my phone. I hope you guys enjoyed my book wrap-up review of the books that I read in January. I'm hopefully going to be able to do this for the month of February and the rest of the year. Let me know in the comments if you want any more in-depth book reviews for any specific reviews, or have any book suggestions, and if you want to read or learn more about the books, you can find them on my Goodreads, and just, yeah, make sure to like and subscribe.